Welcome and thanks for joining us. My guest today is Chip Rogers, the Chief Executive Officer of the American Hotel and Lodging Association. We're talking about what the pandemic did to the hotel industry, what it continues to do to employment within the industry. So let's start with that. When the pandemic hit, we know that it touched every part of the economy, basically. We all felt it. So let's talk about your industry. What did the pandemic do to hotel jobs? And what are we still seeing today as the pandemic continues to linger? It gets better now and then. Numbers rise, numbers fall. Pandemic is still around. But what are we seeing as far as the jobs right now? And what did we see when it was really bad as well?
Well, first, thanks for having me. It got really bad. You know, in 2020, that was the worst year on record for the hospitality industry, far worse than even the Great Depression. And so you get to February of 2020, everything seems to be clicking right along. The hotel industry has millions of employees. And by May of 2020, almost 3/4 of those employees had been laid off, furloughed, or had their hours cut significantly. And so you saw the guests disappeared and so did the employees. And during that time period, as we began slowly but surely building back, a lot of folks left the industry, which was unfortunate because we're certainly feeling that today. Where we sit today, in the summer of 2022, we're still about 19% below the total number of employees we saw pre-pandemic. And it's not because we're not paying more. In fact, if you look at the wage increase during the pandemic, for the general population, wages have gone up over the last 2 years by about 10.5%. In the hospitality industry, specifically to hotels, those same wages have gone up almost 18%. And so we're running at about 75% higher than the general population. Wages are at the highest level they've ever been. And so there's a lot of opportunity out there, but yeah, we're still not anywhere close to where we were pre-pandemic.
So job numbers are still down in the hotel industry. Anything stand out in your mind as to why that is, why it's so far down still?
It's really the food and beverage jobs that are missing the most. So if you think about how this pandemic has played out in our industry and in general with people and how they travel, people are going to beach destinations. They're going to mountain destinations, lakes, anything where they can get outdoors and enjoy themselves outside. And what that means is they're not, for the most part, going to inner city, urban, high-dense locations, and they're not staying in convention center hotels that are built for conventions and large meetings. I mean, think about even here in the Washington, D.C. area, those hotels that surround the convention center. Those are the ones that have suffered the most. And so the food and beverage jobs that go along with that go along for serving these large crowds, these large
conventions
conferences
and stuff, yeah.
Yeah, they're not there right now. They're not back. And so until we get those events back, you won't see the job numbers recover.
As far as things getting slowly back to normal, and we have seen in some ways things get back to normal. We know masks have come off in a lot of areas. A lot of people are traveling. I know summer travel is going to be big this year. How are hotels responding? You said job numbers are still low, so hotels must be doing something. Are they adding new jobs? Are they doing just something just to fill the gap while the summer activity picks up and the job numbers are still down?
Technology is one thing. Boy, it used to be just 3 years ago, people check in at a certain time, they check out at a certain time. Those who clean rooms know they come in at a certain time and they'll be done by a certain time of the day. That has all changed. The ability to communicate with your guests to determine when they're actually showing up and when they're actually leaving helps you be able to transition those rooms. The second part is you don't have automatic daily room cleaning. One of the things that came out of the pandemic, the CDC recommended during the middle of the pandemic, is that you ought not have other people coming into your room every single day unless it's absolutely necessary. And so most hotels have gone to a very common sense approach, which is if you want your room cleaned every day, we'll do it, no questions asked. If you don't want someone coming into your room, we're going to certainly respect that. And so when you check into a hotel right now, you're going to get that question a lot. In fact, I was in a hotel in Chicago the last 2 days, and I asked for my room not to be cleaned. I didn't need anybody coming in. I was only going to need maybe a couple extra towels. And so that has changed how the housekeepers engage in their daily work every day. And so that's how a lot of hotels have been able to make it through this, is by using technology, really tapping into what the guest actually wants and delivering on those items.
Is there optimism that the job numbers are going to go up as we move along and emerge from the pandemic, or do you see this being a problem that you're going to have to deal with, or maybe not a problem, but the lower job numbers continuing for the foreseeable future?
Well, the demand is there, which is great. Unfortunately, we've had hotels that sadly suffered through 2 terrible years, the worst 2 years on record in 2020 and 2021, who have had to close rooms because they don't have enough staff to be able to service those rooms. that has got to stop at some point. We've got to get back to normal. Again, the wages have gone up, the benefits have gone up, the flexibility has gone up, and the attention to making sure that the employer is taking care of these employees, that's gone up to the highest levels I've ever seen. So I think we will get back to those numbers, but just like the rest of the economy, there is an enormous demand for a workforce right now. It's not just our industry. We may be among the worst that are suffering from it, but it's really across the board. And so ultimately, those things will come back, but it's going to take a couple of years.
And you mentioned that on average, wages have increased for employees of hotels. Is that a significant increase that you saw?
Yeah, a significant increase. If you look across the general economy over the last 2 years, the average employee, average position has gone up about 10.5%. Okay. In the hotel industry, it's almost 18%. So a significant jump compared to the rest of the economy. And so we're seeing wage levels, especially in places like Florida, in Texas, Arizona, California, wage levels like we've never seen before.
And why is that? If you would think just naturally, if activity is down, if tourism is down, if everything is down during the pandemic, you would think the wages would go down, but wages actually went up. Why did that happen?
Well, people started coming back and there weren't enough employees, and so the demand on the employees that you had was significant, and the need to go out and find additional employees quickly became significant last summer, and that kind of extended even through the holiday season this year, a little bit of a dip, and now it's kind of in hyper mode of trying to hire people. And so hotels are just paying more than they ever have before, and then you layer into that inflation. Everything is costing more. These same employees can go work for some of the large delivery services and make an enormous amount of money, and so we have to compete with that. We do think that working in a hotel has a lot of benefits compared to stocking shelves in certain places, but each employee will determine that on their own. But we think there's some inherent positive parts about working in the travel and hospitality industry.
And paying employees more is just one way that the industry has been investing in its talent. Can you talk about some of the other ways? I know that you have programs that are meant to help your employees expand their talents and expand what they do in their hotels. Can you explain those programs and how people can access those programs?
Yeah, so a couple of years ago, even prior to the pandemic, we created an apprenticeship program in partnership with the National Restaurant Association through the U.S. Department of Labor. And it's really meant to identify young people who can have a career in hospitality and kind of accelerate their movement up the ladder. And so right now, the good thing is that the opportunity is better than it's ever been before in our industry. And so if you're coming into the industry, you're saying, wow, I can get from point A to point D in just a matter of a short time. And then we at the association are saying we have leadership training programs that can help you at no cost to you as the employer or the employee to get there even more quickly. As I said, the wages and benefits are higher than ever. The flexibility is better than ever. You can travel the world, work in all these great buildings, and we're going to help you get up that ladder faster than we've ever done before.
Right, because that makes sense, because if there are job openings, if you have a lot of openings, then there's room for expansion and quick expansion if you take advantage of some of these things, I suppose, right?
Absolutely. You can start today. If you're willing to work, willing to educate yourself, get additional trainings and certifications, well, you can be in a management type role almost overnight. It happens rather quickly with very good pay and benefits.
And things are about to get a lot busier in the hotel industry. We know that summer travel this year is going to be way up. Can you explain some of the increases that you're expecting as far as the projections as we start to emerge from the harder parts of the pandemic, let's say?
Yeah, I think that there's this general idea of most people that there are friends I haven't seen, family I haven't seen, I've got to get back out on the road. But even beyond that, it's things like Little League baseball teams and soccer teams that are beginning to travel again and going back to doing the things that they normally do. When you add all that up, the demand's going to be higher maybe than ever before for the leisure traveler. So if you're going someplace that is inspired by outdoor activities, whether it be a beach, the mountains, a lake, be expected to see some pretty large crowds this year.
And that's the leisure travel, but you also watch the business travel, and that's the convention area of the industry that we were talking about, the larger numbers of people. Where does that fall as far as the numbers coming back and the numbers slowly returning to normal? Leisure travel is expected to be way up this year, and how about business travel?
Business travel is still going to be down. In fact, the industry projects about $20 billion in losses in business travel compared to 2019. That's the barometer that we look at. And so, yeah, it's still going to be down by a pretty significant level. People aren't back fully in their offices yet, and that has certainly hurt us. Mm-hmm. Normal business travel has really not kicked back up. And then when you think about, take a city like Washington, D.C., some of these conventions can be 3,000, 5,000, 7,000 people. It takes years to plan for an event like that. So if you canceled it, you may not just automatically renew it for the next year. And so a lot of planning is going into rebuilding those large conventions and conferences. And so we'll see those things come back online in 2023 and 2024, but we're not back to the 2019 levels yet.
All right, still work to do, I guess, for all of us coming out of the pandemic. I'd like to thank today's guest, Chip Rogers, the Chief Executive Officer of the American Hotel and Lodging Association. I'm your moderator, Nick Iannelli. For more on this discussion, visit WTOP.com and search AHLA.